Hello everyone, it's Linda Ockwell-Jenner here, co-founder of the Small Business Community Network with another SBCN Perspectives. And the star tonight is my wonderful business partner, sponsor, Steve Bentley from Northern River Financial. Hi, Steve.
How are you? Nice glowing words tonight.
Well, I really can't think of a bad thing to say about you. I'd like to, but I can't think of anything. I'll think of something.
I'll leave that right there.
You have the most amazing topic tonight, so please share it with us.
I was just sort of trying. We had a discussion in one of our podcasts about building basics for business, and I just thought, people are struggling with a lot of things in terms of the infancy of their business and how to go about to initiate growth, ways of getting that attraction to their business. So It's funny enough, I was going through Forbes and came to an article that talked about something called growth hacks. And growth hacks are ways of and you know what a hack is in general, right? But it's just ways of being able to use things that can sort of create that extra stepping stone for your business. So I thought I would just share a few of those tonight.
It's very interesting, and I want to hear more. Steve, take it away.
Well, okay, we're going to come back to business plans, all right? But the whole thing is people look at business plans, and one of the things they don't look at is growth. And what happens if all of a sudden they just come out of the gate and they're so good and they can get too big too fast.
Yeah.
So the concept is really just trying to think big picture, think, big sky, and think, well, here's some very conservative approach, but what happens if? And so in terms of looking at the business behind, making sure it has a growth element to it in terms of how they're going to handle that growth. I mean, perfect example. I mean, if all of a sudden you make a product and all of a sudden it just takes off.
Yeah.
Well, how do you know you can make enough product to satisfy that demand, right? So you got to look at those kind of strategies, and some people don't look far enough ahead in terms of their business, so that's not a good thing. So that's a first one.
It's amazing. I remember, I'm not techie, but I love going to, say, community tech events to hear all the founders who've made it big. The guy who made a smartwatch before, the Apple one, the Pebble. I listened to his story once. He ended up in Silicon Valley. He sold the business. I don't know if it's his story or somebody else's story. They had this problem where basically they hadn't done what you'd suggested doing. But you know what they did? They stopped and they looked, and it wasn't too late. And they thought, okay, we've grown too fast, and it's not just a case of hiring more people. It's to do with the culture within the company. It's to do with, not so much the cash flow, but knowing how much more, I guess it is cash flow, isn't it? How much more we have to spend on products in China or wherever they're getting the products from. But how would, say, a brand new small business know to plan the growth? How would they do that?
They have to have those discussions with the people that are going to assist them in that. I mean, production of goods is one thing, for example. I mean, I talk to so many small businesses who are selling something and they're making them themselves. So that, I said, you go to a show or something like that, and all of a sudden something takes off. Well, what happens if you get an order for 1,000 units? You only got 50. What are you going to do, right? You can't say, well, talk to me in 3 months. I mean, it depends on the business.
You lose your customers.
So you make sure you work. There's a lot of mentorships. There's a lot of support services that can help you look at growth for your business, and so can give you some insight. But I think sometimes it's just doing some research and having some strategies that you don't implement, but that you can call back to if you find that you're in that problem, right? So I think that's important to really think it out ahead.
Are we talking about just companies who actually do build and make products, software, whatever, products that are really tangible? Are we talking about, say, a coach?
Talking services too, right?
Services too. So how would they plan for their growth? Because we always tell people, Steve, you and I, obviously go slow, don't expect everybody's your target market. So how would they go about it?
I think if it's a tangible item, they have to have some kind of pre-discussion with somebody who can help them with that growth. So in other words, if you have a widget, maybe going to talk to a manufacturing company and sort of have that pre-existing relationship to say, if this goes really off the chart, that we've already talked and we've already got a strategy by how we can get you to help manufacture some of that product so that we have something to be able to deliver to people, as opposed to saying, well, okay, you know, I go to a trade show and I've got 50 widgets in inventory and all of a sudden I need to have 1,000. Well, what are you going to do, right? So you need to have that pre-thought strategy, right? I think services is important too, because you can get extended so far that you can promise the sun, but you need to know you can deliver. So sometimes third-party relationships are one way of looking at it, right? Whether it's a service company or whether it's a, you know, manufacturing company, to sort of say, in the short term, can you help me with this? And we've had this discussion so that we are in a position that we can, you know, accelerate based on having already had that kind of stuff in place. So it's not easy, but it's something you need to think about.
It's not just about cash flow then. It is about, say, you've got to the point where you're so busy, you can't do your own accounting anymore. So in your business plan, which I know you're very big on, what would be the hack? I mean, how do you explain the hack in the sense that, you know, you need to get an accountant? What does that mean, a hack, in that sense?
Well, I look at it financing, right? I think it's the other thing too, is you need to have pre-thought, well, okay, again, if the business is going to take off, well, I need to look at the numbers right from the beginning, right? So I need to know how I can have the money available to be able to take it to the next step, right? So maybe you have it yourself. Maybe you want to bring in a partner. Maybe you want to look at lending, but having some way of being able to have access to capital, because it can go to that point where all of a sudden your business grinds to a halt because you can't go to the next step because you don't have the funding for it, right? We've talked about cash flow before, so those are just some ideas in terms of, you know what, sometimes you have to finance it. Sometimes you have to go to a lending institution and sort of say, well, here's my suggestion. Not as easy, but the sooner you start with it, the easier it is to potentially have that available to you.
Yeah, I know many people who have hit that growth spurt and says, well, I don't trust anybody else with doing my accounting or my marketing, but they're holding themselves back then, aren't they, if they don't, you know, go there. So this was an article, did you say, in Forbes?
I think there's two other points I'm going to suggest there too, is well, you know what, maybe it doesn't go off the chart, and you sort of some ways of how do I encourage or how do I develop my market, right?
Yeah.
Well, one thing you can do, for example, is we always talk about content marketing, right? We talk about going out
I
there
love content
right?
marketing.
But you don't have to always do it yourself. If you can, and you can have content, you produce your own content, fine. But sometimes even just borrowing, like this article, sharing this article with the business community or something like that.
As long as you give
right?
credit to the people.
Absolutely, right? But I think that create that awareness about whatever that product line or service line is, and share articles or share information, questions people commonly ask, you know, where do I find this type of product, or, you know, what are the things I should know about it? Sharing that with your audience, but building your audience. And so using social media, but building your audience on social media is as important, right? I think a second part of that too is sometimes we need to give things away, right? Here's a freebie, you know, what do you think of it? Even if it's just to get people to give you an aspect of what do you think the product or service is like.
Yeah.
But that can create the initiation of a relationship, right? But if people can touch it or they can see it and they can work with it, they're going to create a better belief very quickly, as opposed to buying on faith.
But what was the point? Whoever wrote the article in Forbes, why did they call it a hack? I mean, I know about cybersecurity and
I think hack is really just not doing it yourself and just finding alternative ways of doing it, right? So that's where the hack comes in terms of how to deal with growth. You know, for example, I need $50,000 for my business venture. Well, I can't wait 3 years to, you know, save that money up. So is there a hack or a short-term strategy I can get to?
I'm sorry, I'm being a bit naughty now. I've been like this all day. So going back to the cybersecurity hackers, so I need $300,000 for my business, or break into somebody's computer and steal
Well, no, you
it.
can find it from Nigeria. It's very simple.
But that's not what we're talking about. I'm sorry, I'll behave now. No, you are definitely right. So what else on this topic? I mean, what else have you got to share? Because I'm so interested. It's a really good way to look at it.
Yeah, you know, something in our business, for example, is we do things repeatedly over and over again, and we try and redo it, but we don't have a strategy by which we do it. I mean, there's a lot of ways we can automate workflow, for example. I mean, even if it's just client communication and using computers and software to help try and reduce some of the manual things we're doing, but also saying, okay, if I'm going to sell the service of this widget, well, I need to go through certain steps, right?
Yeah.
We'll document those steps. Have a process by which you know your staff, if you have them, are going to follow them, so that they're not doing it one way, you're doing it another way.
Yeah.
And where you can use software, there's a lot of good software out there. Right? Take a client relationship model. Where do you keep all your client data, right? There's a lot of software out there that you can get even free or inexpensively by which you can populate that, which then goes to, when you're looking at marketing and promotion, that's captive information. You've got that. You don't have to re-enter it. So that's just another
So it's saving you time, it's saving you money, you're more organised because time management is very important. It's an interesting article, Steve. I love reading, stuff like that and finding out new things myself. So what would be one of the tips you'd leave with our viewers and our listeners that would really help them hack their way through their business? Not using a hacksaw. No hacksaw.
There's always simpler strategies to do things. We're a creature of habit. We just think that we got to do things over and over again, and not try and find a way to either have somebody else handle part of it or a process to handle part of it. Another thing that's coming into business now is AI, our artificial intelligence, right? How do I use my computers? How do I use my technology to my advantage, right? Really, if you start in the infancy of your business, it's a lot easier to implement something like that than to wait until you're a certain size and all of a sudden, wow, that's a big project, right? So,
especially in some business, like your kind of business, the financial world, your job is not to sit there, keep putting in data, typing in data, and you have staff, people working with you, for you, partners, whatever. So for you to implement the software that you've been talking about and all these ideas, it's a really good way to go. For a brand new business, though, where would they be able to get free hacks from, whether it's software or,
well, take a couple of things. You look at HubSpot, for example, is a database you can use to build your client database, right? Very simple to implement. If you're looking at accounting or invoicing, Wave is a good software that you can use. It's very simple to use. It's free to use. So there's a lot of things tools you can use out there that are available that you don't have to go pay a lot of money for, even just to start small, right? So I think it's important to look at that, but also look at your process. Don't pay people to do something that can be done either by a third party or that can be simplified and put into a workflow that makes it a lot easier and doesn't take as much time.
That's really good tips.
You're paying on the hour, for example, for some staff. Well, how do I make their job easier?
I know one way. Don't be a micromanager, because I hate micromanagers. If you can hack your way out of that, that'd be amazing.
Well, I think that comes to a business too, is you want to hire somebody to do a job, let them do the job,
Trust
right?
them.
If you're going to micromanage them and critique everything they do, well, why don't you just do it yourself, right? So that's a good point.
That's a good way. That was a really interesting topic. I've never heard that terminology in that sense before, Steve. That was really great that you found it. Thanks for sharing. Well, all I want to leave with everybody is you can see who the brains in this show is. It's certainly not me. I'm just the giggling blonde. No, seriously, anybody listening and watching us out there, please come back next time for the Small Business Perspective podcast video, because we have a lot to offer, don't we, Steve?
We do. We're having a lot of success with these too. We're getting a lot of positive feedback, so it's encouraging.
So thanks again for your time, Steve. I know you're busy, and I'll see you next week.
All right. You have a good evening, and we'll catch up with you soon.